Hey guys, we're back here with the second episode of Distant Discussions, and of course, I'm here with my girlfriend.
Hi, everyone.
And pretty much today, we're gonna get into just continuing our story. We didn't really get into how we actually started dating, but I'm gonna let Catherine take this over because she has a better memory than me. So yeah.
Yeah, so before I get into it, quick side note, if you hear yelling in the background, that in fact is not a human being. That is my bird. I have a yellow Nape parrot and he loves to scream.
Hmm.
So just getting that out of the way just in case it picks up. But anyway, yeah, like you said, we never really got into it. We kind of just got into all the reasons why we weren't dating for so long. So this is just kind of a continuation of how we started dating. So first off, we did leave off where he moved to Florida for college,
Hmm.
and we were already friends at that point. And yeah, so we had been friends for like a couple months at this point. It was like around December when we started talking about him coming to visit me, and he did want to date me at this point. And at this point, I feel like we had known each other for so long. We had gotten to know each other again, and
Yeah.
we were friends for like a couple
And
months now.
for anyone that's confused, real quick, we've been friends since high school, but the thing is, we had some ups and downs in between those years, so we kind of stopped talking for a bit, and then we became friends to what she mentioned now.
Yeah, so he had kind of like mentioned to me that like we should date because honestly, our friendship kind of like the one thing I always say is Sebastian is like my best friend. Denise, you're also my best friend. Let me put that out there. But Sebastian also is like a best friend kind of. So to me, I've always said like, oh, I want to date someone who is like my best friend. So at this point, we kind of like wanted to date, but we also kind of wanted to give it some time
Hmm.
because we hadn't seen each other in person. So we're not just gonna start. Sorry, my bird's in the back screaming, so I just hope it doesn't pick up. But yeah, we just didn't want to start dating without seeing each other in 4 years. And
You're
I'm
good. You're
sorry,
good.
my bird is screaming. I apologize, guys. Um, so he was gonna come visit me, and we were still friends when he came to visit me. But I like he knew, especially because I don't know if you're a girl or a guy in a traditional Hispanic household, you know that if someone wants to date you, if you want to date a Hispanic girl,
Hmm.
you most of the time have to ask parents for permission. So Sebastian was already familiar with that, but I also told him that it was pretty important to me. And so he knew that if he wanted to date me, he had to talk to my parents about it.
Yep.
So he kind of came, I guess, with the intention to ask me, but at the same time wasn't sure what my parents were going to say. So I remember he sent me a letter, but at the time he had just told me, hey, something's coming in the mail. I only knew it was a letter because he said, if it gets there, don't open it until I'm there and I tell you to open it.
And Catherine hates surprises when she knows it's kind of coming. Like, obviously, it's not a surprise anymore, but if it's right there in front of her, she just has it in her head, like, I need to open this. But I wasn't begging, but I was really telling her not to open it until I got there. But the thing is, she would start asking questions, like a lot of questions, to try to like pry me open to give her the information that she wants. But in the end, I kind of did my best to keep it as low key as possible.
Yeah, I love surprises and all, but if you give me one little hint that you're going to surprise me, I will not leave it alone because not that it gives me anxiety, but kind of like I'm just so anxious to know what it is. But anyway, so yeah, he told me not to open it, but luckily it didn't get here until after he talked to my parents and everything. So the moment it got here, he was actually sitting next to me,
Mm.
so I could open it right then and there. But yeah, so after he talked to my parents, which they said yes, and this letter came like a day or two later. So we had managed to, hang out and stuff. And then after hanging out, obviously we're like, oh, it kind of feels like the last time he came to visit. Like we're still friends. It was just working out, I guess. So at that point, I opened the letter and I thought it was gonna be like a letter that he wrote or something, but I remember opening it and it was in a pink little envelope. I actually still have it. but it was like in a pink little envelope with a wax seal, and the wax seal had like a little heart in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I opened it, there was like heart confetti in it and stuff, and it was like a printed letter, but the font was like super fancy. I don't know what font it was. And it was basically like a long letter, and at the end of it, he asked me to be his girlfriend. So that was back in December. So this was like how many months ago? Like 8 months ago.
Yeah, what? We're in August right now. I mean, we're getting into September, but pretty much
Yeah.
8 months ago, 8.5.
And also, this comes out probably like Friday, Saturday. So let's wish Sebastian a happy early birthday. His birthday is September 4th. So he's going to be 23 years old. He's going to be
Oh my
older than me for a
gosh.
month. But yeah, that like back to what we were saying. Um that is how he asked me to be his girlfriend. And then ever
Well,
since
besides the letter saying or asking to be your girlfriend, I actually asked her to be my
yeah,
girlfriend.
because he was standing next to me when the letter got there.
Yeah.
So after I read it, like when he saw that I was done, he's like, "Okay, like, will you be my girlfriend?" And then, I mean, I said yes, because we're dating now. But that's how he asked me to be his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And that was crazy because I was like 9 years after we became friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, so here we are now. Um,
Almost a
but
year
yeah,
into our relationship.
yeah, crazy. I never thought, like, it's crazy because I always tell him, like, I never thought back in like high school when we were like 13 that we would end up dating.
Yeah, no. Looking back at it, I mean, this was honestly the last thing I expected, especially because, from my experience going through high school at that point, I didn't want to go to that high school specifically. So I didn't really care about anyone
Mhm.
there. So it's crazy to know
Yeah.
that I ended up dating someone from high school 9 years later.
Yeah. And as I mentioned in the last episode, there was obviously some reasons we weren't dating for a while too.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them that we both actually wanted to talk about this episode was the height difference. So, if you guys know us, Sebastian is 3 inches shorter than me, 3 inches shorter than me. And to some people, it's not a big deal, but to other people, it's like a no. Like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of girls are like, I will not date anyone shorter than me. So it just, I guess it depends on the person. But that was a topic we wanted to get into, not just because of our relationship, but because it's like one of those things
It's a stigma.
that, yeah, it's kind of like taboo to
Yeah.
date, like for a girl to be dating a guy shorter than her.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, I'll let Sebastian give his opinion on that, and then I'll get into it.
I mean, for as long as I can literally speak, obviously, we'll jump into more getting into high school. Like I just never cared about my height. Like to give you context, when I started high school, I'm pretty sure I was about 4'8". So I was very short. Like I was abnormally short for a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And just throughout that time, I didn't see height as like a factor in especially dating. It just didn't matter to me. Now, of course, as I got older, like there was a height limit now, because like there's times where someone is too tall for you or too short for you, and that's just the truth. But if we're talking like a anywhere from the same height to a 5 inch difference, like to me that's not that big. And so with me and Catherine, I'm 5'3" and she's 5'6", so like I never saw that as a big difference at all. It was just like something that was just there. I was like, okay, like it's just it's just us. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, and I feel like for a shorter guy dating a taller girl, it's not really like that crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like more of the negative comments are made towards the girl because, being a girl, I feel like most people expect you to date someone like not way taller than you, but taller than you.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, growing up, that's just what I saw. So I was like, okay, like this is kind of a big deal to me. But as I got older, I kind of realized that it wasn't really that important at the end of the day. And I know to some people it's like the biggest deal. And it was for me too for a while. But then I kind of sat down and really thought about it and realized that that's not going to be the reason that keeps me from like dating someone that I can potentially marry and that treats me the way I like to be treated. So, yeah, but I have noticed that like there's a couple on TikTok that I watch. I don't know if you guys know them, Abby Herbert and Josh. They're she's like 3 to 4 inches taller than him, I think. And people will like comment, like there's a lot of positive comments, but then I also see a lot of people making fun of their height. Like, oh my gosh, like she's taller than him, ha ha ha, or whatever. And to me, I'm like, if it would be the opposite and it would be a guy that was 4 inches taller than his girlfriend, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal. But I think it's because people are just so used to saying that, and that's usually what is out there. But I feel like for Sebastian, I mean, I can't speak for him, but I feel like it hasn't really been a negative experience where like people are like, oh, because our height difference isn't really that big.
I think to me, I like genuinely, and you know, I'm sorry if this happened to other people, but like I've just never been bullied for my height, nor have I ever like experienced that. And I think that's just due to me being able to play sports, and it's not in a cocky way or anything. It's just like it helped me kind of establish like something about myself that, you know, people aren't really gonna pick on you for, like, oh, you play sports, cool. So, you know, going through my life being shorter than everyone, it didn't necessarily affect me. Like my confidence was actually gained from playing soccer, because I played soccer pretty much all my life. Like I played at club level, and I enjoyed it a lot. So, you know, I've always played against guys that are so much taller than me, but they never really affected me in any way. So, you know, going outside of sports and really just, you know, being able to socialize with other people, height just never affected me like that. It was just never something that, you know, put me down, or like, oh, I can't do something because I'm too short.
Yeah, and like in terms of dating though, it's negative. It's never negatively been like brought up to him as like, oh my gosh, you're dating a girl taller than you.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of more like a thing that I would probably have to deal with those opinions because, as I said, like usually the girls are the shorter ones. Yeah, so that's just a topic we wanted to touch on just a tiny bit, but we just think it's interesting to kind of get into it just because we don't see a ton of couples like that. So it's just kind of like
I think it's
interesting to
becoming
talk
more
about.
normalized now.
Yeah, definitely now it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, before it wasn't very common at all.
Yeah. Especially when we were in high school.
Oh yeah, definitely. When we were in high school, we didn't really see a whole lot of couples that were like, the guy was shorter and the girl was taller.
I mean, we pretty much went to a like purely Hispanic high school like that, because the area that we lived in, both lived in California. Like it was pretty much Hispanic dominant, especially in the area we were in. So, you know, that's pretty much what it was.
And not gonna lie, I felt like I got a lot of like comments when I did live in California about how tall I was because it was so Hispanic. Like, I guess, not hi- because it was such a Hispanic like population, I guess. Sorry, I'm like struggling to find my words. But yeah, when I moved here, obviously it's more of a Caucasian population.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought I was like average, like I wasn't averagely, like my height wasn't average for a girl. I thought I was slightly taller. But then I moved here and apparently I am average, just not in the part of California I grew up in.
Well, Hispanics tend to be shorter.
Be shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the
But
thing.
yeah, the next topic we actually thought would be interesting to get into um, was our life when, like, before we dated, I guess, and kind of the dating culture now.
Oh
Because
man.
I think that's, yeah, I think that's very interesting to talk about. And it's one of, you know, it's a big reason. It's not the main reason we started dating, but we got the chance to see what dating culture is like. And we kind of were like, wow, like, I think that made us realize that the other person, so like me, Sebastian, and Sebastian, me, that we possess the qualities that the other person wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know if that made any sense. I worded that in the most complicated way.
I mean, it
ever.
did. I think people would
Okay.
understand. And, you know, like, obviously we're going based off our experience, and it's pretty ignorant to think that it's like that everywhere. But to be
Yeah.
fair, the way social media has been portraying relationships and stuff, it hasn't been positive whatsoever. Like you'll have the healthy relationships here and there, but a lot of people are promoting a lot of negative and actually very toxic traits for relationships. And it's actually pretty sad to see that. But you know, looking at it now and seeing how we personally experience things, because of course I can't speak upon Catherine, I'm just speaking upon myself. Like the
Yeah.
experiences I had were, there was some positive and like actually mostly negative. Like it wasn't very fulfilling, especially when I saw that, like, yeah, this isn't something that can go long term with anyone. So I kind of just stayed single for a while.
Yeah, and like we both had our experiences, and I guess I'll give a little bit of my experience,
Mm-hmm.
and then Sebastian can share, I guess, more in detail your experience.
Yeah.
But for me, before Sebastian and I dated, I, like I said, I wasn't allowed to date till I was 18. So I had my first boyfriend at 19. That relationship did last a while. Um, After that relationship, I kind of really realized what I wanted. And I realized what dating culture is like, at least here, or my experience with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like people no longer see, some people, I don't want to generalize because there are a lot of people that do see dating or marriage,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of people that just see dating as something fun to do, I guess.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to date a million people for no reason, to be taken on dates and stuff. I can pay for my own food personally. I don't want I don't want to have the pressure of going on dates. You know what I mean? I can take myself out on a date. Like if I want to date to marry. That is the goal. Like I think that's what dating should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like not a lot of people share the same opinion. But personally, I feel like if you're dating to marry, you're really going to keep yourself from getting hurt. But the issue happens when you want to date to get married and then somebody tells you like, "Oh yeah, I also want to date to get married." But obviously they don't have the same intention. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which is a lot of guys now. You know what I mean? Like at least personally from what I experienced, a lot of guys are not ready to settle down until their late 20s or even more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think what drew me to Sebastian was my last relationship, which I know sounds like so messed up, but it kind of made me realize that not everyone has the qualities that Sebastian had. Um, like a lot of people will do anything to try to date you and act like someone they are not. And the thing about Sebastian and I is we've been friends for so long that I do know him better than I think a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of his qualities, like all of his qualities, have remained consistent since he was 13. Obviously, he's matured a little bit, we've changed a little bit, but those qualities that I look for, like honesty, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be dating someone I can trust. He's been that way since he was 13. Um, there's like not a lot of honest men.
Yeah.
And
So
I'm not just trying to sit here and say all men are trash. Please don't get me wrong, because that's not what I'm saying.
I
Sorry,
mean,
you were gonna say something.
no, I was just gonna say, like, pretty much to give a quick backstory, my parents were separated since I was like around 3 years old. And they stuck around as both parents to raise me, with a mom and dad. So
Yeah.
they're not bad parents by any means, but I will say, like, me growing up and experiencing the things that I saw in front of my eyes, because it wasn't the healthiest thing either. It's two separated parents trying to grow up and live their life. They had me when they were both 19 and 20, so they really had a lot to learn, and it helped me mature a lot faster and realize that I want to treat others as nice as possible. And I'm not perfect in that. I do tend to be mean at times, and I'm pretty quiet as it is, but like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, Sebastian and I have had like pretty, I guess, different ways of growing up. So like me on the other hand, my parents are still together. They've been together since, I was born. They were married when I was born. And I think with me, I have seen them stick together for I don't know, like 20 something years, about like 24 years now. And that has made me want that. Like I want to marry someone and stick to that person. So to me, it's like it's important to marry someone that I know kind of wants that, like the same thing I do, because I feel like nowadays it's kind of hard to find somebody that really wants to settle down and to be with one person for the rest of their lives, because obviously it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I'm not married, but I can assume it's not easy. Um, but at the same time, it's something I grew up seeing, and it's kind of something I've always wanted. And it's kind of interesting to hear both perspectives here because I grew up seeing it, so it's something I want. And Sebastian didn't grow up saying that necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still something he wants because it's something I'm guessing you wish you had growing up.
I mean, yeah, like a lot of the kids I grew up with, like all my friends, like they pretty much had two parents by their side, both of them still either married or at least dating, and
Mm-hmm.
so literally everywhere I looked, it was pretty much like that. And going back to a little bit to the soccer thing, I grew up with those friends like for years. So I was with their families a lot and I saw like the value of all of that. And that's something I started being like, I want that for myself someday. And so that's really where it came from. While I had my negative experience with my own parents, growing up with my friends and their families kind of made me see what the other side of like how families can actually grow together.
Yeah, so that's obviously kind of like where our beliefs and what we want stem from. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a little backstory to where our like what we want in a relationship stem from.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so going back to our experiences, I guess I'll go first and then Sebastian can talk about it.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned earlier, I dated someone for 2 years. Then that ended. So I was single for a year. And Sebastian knows this, but I don't think a lot of people do. But during that year, I literally did everything to heal, not just in terms of like emotionally, but I think physically as well. Because I do think I was slightly out of shape because I was depressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the time to try to work out, which I need to get back into. And anyway, I also decided and wanted to better my relationship with God. So that year I really like bettered that relationship with God, and I think that's one of the things that helped me heal so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it it made me realize what I really wanted, I guess, at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And during this time, I actually made a promise to God and to myself that I wouldn't date anyone for a year. And I didn't. It was a little over a year when I started dating Sebastian. And crazy part is I did have like people approach me like wanting to take me on dates, and I just refused because I made that promise and I'm not going to break a promise to God, especially or to myself. So, yeah, that year kind of really allowed me to see what I really wanted in someone. A lot of those qualities are something that I thought were pretty simple. Like I thought those were easy to meet, like most guys would have them, but I realized very quickly that it is not a very common thing to find guys with all those qualities. For example, like when I was single, a lot of people that approached me, not every guy, but a lot of guys that approached me had some sort of addiction. And considering that I was in my early 20s, that is absolutely insane to me. And yeah, so there's just a lot that I saw that was it like really opened my eyes being
Yeah.
single or even just that relationship I was in. Like there were so many physical qualities that I wanted in guys that after being in that relationship just immediately just disappeared because
Yeah.
it was just something that made me realize that those things didn't matter. And yeah, like so many girls have experiences like that which lead them to kind of focus on better or like look for better. But yeah, so I know I've been talking for a bit, but yeah, that was just my experience. Yeah, basically like being single taught me that I like it showed me what I want. And there were certain things I prayed about also to God and I asked for.
Yeah.
And I still continue to pray and ask for things just because to me it's like just because I'm dating you doesn't mean that I need to stop praying. You know what I mean?
For
Because
sure.
I feel like to me, God being the center of my relationships is the most important thing. And that's something that I didn't have in my previous relationship. And that was just one of the bad things there. But I feel like it should be the most important thing, like in
And
my relationships.
see, what I'll say to that, my experiences with, people I talked to throughout that gap, they weren't necessarily the best because it would have just ended off in like a very short term thing. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
like that. I already didn't like that whatsoever. I never had that mindset. It was all about long term relationships and making them last. Um, you
Yeah.
know,
I'm sorry. Would you say that you also have always seen like dating for marriage or what's your take on that?
yeah, I do think dating is for marriage. Um, Pretty much for as long as I can remember, that's pretty much always been the goal for my relationships. I've never had anything different. Never really thought anything different because it doesn't make sense to me in any other way. But yeah.
Yeah. And um sorry, I interrupted, but you were saying about your experiences and how um they were like you saw they were going to be short term.
Yeah, no. A lot of the experiences I had with some of the girls that I talked to, I could already tell that they were short term just because of the way the interactions went. There wasn't any kind of genuine conversation. It was kind of like, let me know a few things about you. Let me know if you're cool, and then we'll go from there. It was never like, let me actually get to know you before we actually get into anything. So, you know, when I feel that that's happening, um, it kind of just completely turns me off and just makes me move on. That's pretty
Yeah.
much what happens. Yeah. So, I mean, knowing that how those interactions were going already, and knowing that they weren't gonna last very long, it completely made me realize Catherine was the girl for me for quite a while. It was kind of one of those things where I was like, man, at least from my experience, everywhere I looked, it was pretty much the same interaction every single time. It was never a difference. And you know, when I just saw like how people acted, for me personally,
Hmm.
it's not the best thing in the world. Like going out to have fun, doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just never my thing. But yeah, like Catherine and her qualities, she's very calm. She's very to herself. And you know, it's kind of like when I look at her compared to my experiences throughout that time, it it's weird, but it was like a refresher. It was like, this is someone that I can see myself dating. I
Hmm.
obviously, especially throughout that gap when we eventually became friends again, it was instant in my mind. I was like, this would be a relationship that would go into marriage just because of the qualities that we had already. We didn't need that, like, let me go experience stuff before I'm ready. It was kind of like, I think we're both ready and we want to do this.
Yeah, and I will never forget that when we started dating, Sebastian told me about some of his experiences because obviously when you start dating someone, you're pretty open with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to him about my experiences and like, you know, why I thought the way I did. And then Sebastian also opened up to me about like why he thought the way he did. And I will never forget that he told me, he's like, when I was talking to girls, I always constantly saw myself kind of wanting them to have the qualities you had.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that stuck out because it's like, I guess I never thought that someone would think about me, like my qualities that way, because I thought it was pretty common. Like, the thing about Sebastian and us is like, Sebastian and us, the thing about Sebastian and I is that I think we're both pretty calm people. Like, our idea of fun is going to Barnes and Noble and getting Legos and
Yeah,
building
we're
them
pretty
together.
boring. Yeah.
Pretty much. We're not like, we don't think going clubbing is fun. We don't really enjoy like parties, to be honest. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we enjoy spending time together eating. We're foodies, although we both don't eat very much and we eat super slow.
Mm-hmm.
But and we love like Legos and stuff, or just like talking. Like,
I feel like
I
I got
personally,
you a little more into the
yeah,
Legos.
I'm not still that into Legos. I feel like I'm more into makeup and like reading. I've recently really gotten into reading. But sorry, that's what I was like kind of getting into. Like, I feel like Sebastian's always wanted someone pretty calm and that just like a homebody basically.
Here's what I will say, and she kind of just made me or remind me of like how I thought about this. The way Catherine makes me feel as if like it's okay to bring the child in me back out. It's like there's a comfortability where I don't need to kind of be like, oh, I like to do things all the other guys like to do. You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah. Like, to better explain what you're saying, like he also explained this to me. He was like a lot of girls will judge someone, or like not even girls, like I guess people, like you're like, they could be like, you're 23 and you still like to play with Legos. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And I remember initially even though we had been friends for so long, he didn't want to tell me he liked Legos,
Yeah.
which I thought was so funny because I was like, they're like puzzles. And like my mom loves puzzles. Like so does my grandma. Like everyone in my family loves like doing stuff like that. But he like loves Legos. And he was like, I thought you would judge me about like Legos and like Pokemon. Cause like oddly enough, I know a lot of like guys who are older that love Pokemon and like Legos and stuff, but are like afraid to tell girls that. I don't know why, because I think it's pretty
It's
normal.
pretty much a stigma. That's pretty much what
Hmm.
happens. It's like when you think of the guy as a caretaker, it's like when he starts to do things that are more towards like I guess their childhood. Obviously, it's gonna for someone, I can't speak upon like women in general,
Yeah.
but from my own experiences, that's exactly what happens. It's like, well, why do you like that stuff? Like, come on now, you're
Yeah.
gonna be 23 years old. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And obviously, I didn't judge him on that. We kind of started building Legos together.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's one thing we had in common. Like, so it's funny because I tell Sebastian, I'm like, I've always kind of thought it was attractive for someone to be like more on the nerdy side. Like, I would much rather you be building Legos than absolutely going crazy. Obviously, to a certain extent,
Yeah.
because I think it becomes an ick when that's all a guy wants to do. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to have a job. He doesn't really care for you. It's kind of just like, I'm working for my Legos and my video games.
Yeah.
Then there's a problem right there. I don't want that.
You see, there's quite a bit of trouble there because, a lot of my career once high school pretty much ended was playing video games for a living. Like I actually lived off of that. So, I'm at a
I
point
mean,
in, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I thought you were done. I was going to say, yeah, like, to me, that was different though. Because I know, like, there's people who could literally play video games out of enjoyment all day.
I can't do that. Like it's not in me
Yeah.
to kind of, I've always had the mindset of like improvement. So if I'm not improving in something, I'm not the happiest person. Like to me, I obviously took my gaming career like seriously because it was a career at the end of the day. Um, Especially even when I just came out of high school, I already had that mindset. I was like, this is something that's bringing income for me to support myself, but maybe support others too around me, and that's how I always thought about it. So luckily, I ended up doing gaming as a career, but I like it still kind of scared me to show it to the public or like to tell everyone that I did it because it's still
Mm-hmm.
gaming at the end of the day. Like, oh, you
Yeah.
play video games? Like, come on, man. Like, and I know it's more normalized now to like, oh, there's a lot of guys that like to play video games.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm talking about when you say these words like I'm a professional gamer and I make money off of it. Initially, it's cool because you're making money off of it. But then you start to realize that's all you do. You literally just play video games, and that your entire life is pretty much video games. Like from the way you feel about things to the way you act to your relationships, like everything about you going forward is just video games. Like that video game that you play
Yeah.
specifically is your life.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, enough about video games. Like that, I think that was one of the strongest qualities, is pretty much make like being able to make me feel comfortable about doing things that would be seen as like, come on, man, you're a grown person. But like other qualities
Yeah.
that she has that I really really enjoy are just, no, she's very caring in the sense that caring and understanding, and I kind of put those things together because obviously I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect, but when we talk through our issues, like we really are able to talk through them. We don't shout at each other. We don't go after each other at any point. Like, yes, we do have some pettiness in us. Like that happens. Like it's just gonna
Yeah.
happen. But at the end of the day, we can resolve our issues because we can communicate through them. Now, I will say she's better at communication than I am because I tend to go on the quieter side, but I make sure not to do that. And so I really appreciate that about her.
Yeah, and another thing about us too, I think both of us have this quality,
Mm-hmm.
is honesty and being able to trust one another. And but yeah, I do think that we're both really open with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're long distance, so that is very important because all we do is communicate all day. All we do is talk all day.
But I think it
We don't
makes us
really,
seeing each other in person that much better though, because it's like,
yeah, because we
uh,
get to go on dates and like go to movies, go eat.
yeah,
We always do fun things together. Dave and Buster's. But
yep.
yeah, but I do think that having trust is obviously one of the biggest things when it comes to long distance relationships. But yeah, that's just some of the qualities that, made us date each other. And I know in the last podcast episode, we talked a little bit about religion, and
Mm-hmm.
I know earlier I said that I do think God and religion or Christianity should be the center of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And just to touch a little bit more on that topic, um, I've had so many experiences that have led me to believe that. Um, I do think that obviously the way I grew up and just seeing how God being in a relationship is like helps a relationship, that
Yeah.
has made me believe that, but also just based on personal experiences. Um, I can share those after I guess you give your opinion on that.
Yeah, too. And going into religion for me, growing up, I wasn't the most religious person up until recently. And especially in relationships, I definitely see it as the forefront of a healthy relationship because I see it as, the fear of God, essentially. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know that God is real, and if I know what's right and wrong, and I know if I do something that's wrong, there will be consequences to a certain extent. And it's just that the fear that if I make mistakes, it's not gonna, like, obviously the relationship won't be healthy at all, but also God watching over that.
Obviously, fear of God doesn't mean like, oh my goodness, I'm so scared of God. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I know God is watching me,
Mm-hmm.
and for that reason, I want to do the right thing. And
Yes.
obviously, like, those are like morals and just things you believe. But to me, that's obviously one of the main reasons as well as to why God should be the center of a relationship. But I also think that when God is in the relationship, or like, the center of it, he blesses you. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it brings blessings onto a relationship. And, that's kind of what I've always believed. Obviously, I'm not saying a relationship's gonna be easy simply because you believe in God, because a relationship is a relationship. But they're never perfect. But I do think that having God in a relationship helps, because there's so many verses in the Bible, like, I have one verse that I love, and it's about like love, basically. It's like, love is patient, love is kind, like, and it talks about what love should be. And to me, like, those verses remind me why God should be the center of a relationship, because it teaches you love is patient, love is kind. You should not be easy to anger. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many verses, and to me, that is what a relationship should be. So, yeah, that's another reason God should be, like, to me, the center of a relationship.
Well, I think at this point, to both of us, like, I think as long as we continue with this, as God being in the front of our relationship, when I think about our relationship just in general, I legitimately can't see myself ending it at any point, and I'm sure that Catherine feels the same way. But it's just because of not only the qualities that we have, but because of the religious aspect too. It's kind of just like, no one is ever going to be perfect, and that you can't check every single box, and that it's not possible. So we also understand, like, we're gonna really take the biggest things that we see in a relationship that are important, and we're gonna check those off, because if those are checked, then everything else can kind of, like, there's sacrifices that could be made in the relationship to help each other grow, and that's what's important.
Yeah, and I think this podcast episode was pretty interesting. I don't know about you guys, but it is pretty long now, so I think this will be the end of this one. But I know that in the last episode we had mentioned that we would be filming this together, and that only really affects you if you're watching this on YouTube. But we did film that. Sebastian accidentally deleted it off my computer.
Oh, you had to go and repeat that? Okay.
Yeah, he just deleted the wrong video, but it's fine, because here we are recording it again. But next time he comes to visit, we will definitely record one in person. And if you guys want to see the actual video of that, if you're watching this on like Apple Podcast or Spotify, you can go over on YouTube. Our YouTube is Distant Discussions. So if you guys aren't subscribed to us, you guys definitely should, watch our videos. But yeah, so that's about it for today. Next week should be pretty interesting too. I think we will probably share some stories, funny stories about us, some good stories that have never been told, some piping hot tea.
Catherine loves her tea.
Yeah, tea time. This was just a continuation of last week, and just kind of what we think about relationships, and just our beliefs in general when it comes to relationships and qualities and stuff. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Sebastian, anything to say?
Pretty much, I was messed up for calling me out again for accidentally deleting our second podcast recording, but other than that, we're good. We're good to go.
Yeah, it's fine, but I want to make an outro song. Distant Discussions.
We had to think about that, because right now I have nothing in mind.
Okay. Yes. So it was a great episode. It was nice seeing you guys. See you guys next week. It's gonna be a good one. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And give it a review on Apple Podcast if you can. Give it a like. Give it a comment.
And,
let me just hype this
and
up.
if you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel and keep up with it. We're posting
Yeah.
weekly podcasts, and we really want to.
Hey, yeah. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, and we plan to keep going too. Like, it's not like we're just gonna stop.
Yeah. So yeah, no, like, you guys want to show the support, be sure to do that. If you guys enjoy these podcasts, and for sure, like, let us know, whether it be a comment or like or review, anything. So yeah, we really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. And if it does get like, better and like people actually enjoy it, obviously my webcam, if you're watching this on YouTube, will eventually get better. I will get an actual like setup, like we both will.
Yeah.
But for right now, it's very low quality.
I wouldn't say
that's
low
okay.
quality. I think it was still pretty decent, but
It's pretty. At least we have mics.
yeah.
So this podcast was talked about between Sebastian and I for a while, and we both kind of thought the other wasn't that serious about it until we really sat down and talked about it, and we realized that we both really wanted to start a podcast.
Yeah.
So we decided to start it, and you know what? It finally made it out of the group chat.
I mean, honestly, it's been quite a while, because we mentioned it like here and there a while back.
Yeah.
But it's good to see that we're finally getting through with it, because we enjoy it. I mean, obviously, like, we enjoy talking to each other, so why not?
Yeah. So yeah, and I think we do have, I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, but I think we kind of have a schedule now, right? Of when we're going to be posting.
Yeah, so we're looking to post every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music at around 5 to 7 a.m. And then the very next day, every Saturday, we're posting our YouTube podcast at 5 a.m. So if you guys want to show the support, just be sure to subscribe so you guys can keep up with our future uploads. And yeah.
Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll see you guys next week. So today's outro, since I'm going to be trying one every single week, is distant discussions. Bing.
Hey, that one might stick. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Have a good night, day.